Which three defensive players have the highest likelihood of not making the Giants' final 53-man roster? I already did a video on this for the Giants offense where I discussed three guys that very clearly were going to get cut at the end of the preseason. Today's video is a little different. There's two guys that are not in direct competition with one another, but at a similar position group that the Giants just drafted two players, which could impact their security. There's another player who is either going to get cut or because of money committed to him, the Giants could potentially trade at the end of the preseason. Let's dig into the three options for guys that I think have the highest likelihood of not making this final team. Is anybody really shocked? Is anybody really shocked that I'm going to start off with Deonte Banks? Look, Deontay Banks has completely regressed year over year. He turned into a kick returner for this Giants team last season. That was the most amount of value that the Giants have gotten out of him in some time since his first year in the NFL. He has not improved one bit. Here's the thing with Deonte Banks. He's a former first rounder. He's a really good athlete. He's a dead cap hit of $4.3 million. That's not enough of a dead cap hit to impact the decision on if you want to keep him or not. If the Giants chose to, if somebody with a just really bad secondary depth, worse than the Giants, wanted to send a 6th or a 7th round pick, I feel like the Giants would be compelled to listen. I'm sure that at the end of the preseason, when they realize there's no real desirable spot for him on this roster, that they're going to try and shop him around. And if that doesn't happen, he probably will not make this final roster. I'm just coming at this, forget the financials of it for a second. I'm coming at this from the angle of where is he going to fit that he is going to stick? After you drafted Colton Hood, you have established that your starting outside corners should be Paulson Adebo and Colton Hood. Greg Newsome, who you signed in free agency, has a better track record than Deonte Banks. He should be your first backup outside corner, not Deonte Banks. So we're already pushing him further and further down on this roster. Does Deonte Banks theoretically carve out a sub-package role? You already have two solid options at your nickelback role with Drew Phillips, who was a bit up and down last year, but has shown more impact than Deonte Banks, and also with the signing of our Darius Washington, who is a John Harbaugh guy. I just think with all of these moves and the way that this defensive back room looks at the current moment, there is really not much room to keep him. Are you going to keep a player that has been incredibly unreliable and that is not going to really be able to contribute in a meaningful way? Unless they really think that Banks is a good enough of a kick returner that they want to keep him around, that he's one of the last corners, that I don't imagine that it's probably going to come to fruition to that degree. I just don't see a way, after they are clearly at the point where they're tired of the diminishing returns on certain players that have not panned out, that they would much rather just turn the page and move on, especially for Harbaugh, who is trying to set a tone and trying to get results and trying to establish that the culture going forward is his. It is not what Joe Schoen built. So I don't think that Deonte Banks is going to be a part of this final roster unless he shows some signs of improvement during the preseason. So next I want to talk about Darius Muasau, and he's going to be tied to Micah McFadden, which we're going to get to next. The Giants had a big emphasis on linebacker during this offseason. You drafted Arvell Reese, who's probably going to play Will Backer for you. You signed Tremaine Edmonds, who's going to be your Mike Backer. Your starting linebackers look 10 times better than they did a year ago. So now the depth on this Giants roster at linebacker slides backward. You also drafted Jack Kelly, who I don't know if it is necessarily a guarantee that Jack Kelly is on the final roster. He might end up being a practice squad player, but I would assume that bringing in a guy like Kelly for his identity, like I talked about and praised that draft selection, he could end up working his way into a special teams role, and he could end up being one of the early Harbaugh guys as a rookie, late round rookie who sticks around. It's not much of a guarantee. But Darius Muasau specifically, with all of these subsequent moves that you made at linebacker, these additions, he is the easiest player to get rid of. He has a $100,000 dead cap hit. $100,000. So it would be nothing to get rid of him. While he has been solid depth and a contributor on special teams, he had 51 tackles and a sack a year ago. It seems like the page is being turned. When you run a 3-4 like the Giants are going to this upcoming year, you can only commit so many players to back up inside linebacker roles. You have to, with the amount of edge rushers that they're likely going to be using, leave extra room for your linebackers for those pass rushing outside linebackers. I think that Muasau, as much as he has been a solid depth piece for this team, the roster is starting to get really, really crowded. And it just does not seem viable that he is going to be able to stick because of those, not just additions, but major additions. We're talking about one of the biggest free agent pickups that they had, arguably the biggest behind Isaiah Likely, and the biggest draft selection that they had with Arvell Reese. It is going to be really, really tough for Muasau to stick, and also possibly the same for Micah McFadden. Now, the way that I see this with Micah McFadden is he has a bit more security because he just signed a new deal. His new contract has a $2.9 million dead cap hit. That isn't a guarantee of security, but it's enough money committed to him that it seems like that they brought him back because they like the idea of him being their third available inside linebacker. I really like Micah McFadden. I was really upset and disappointed that he got hurt because I wanted to see what he was going to do. I thought that he would have made for a great inside linebacker, a great will backer next to Tremaine Edmunds. In 2024, one of his best years in the league, when he had 107 tackles, it really looked like McFadden was trending towards getting a long-term deal with the Giants. But because he missed the entirety of last season, was not available, it impacted things. Good on the Giants for bringing him back and giving him an opportunity to prove himself. I do think that McFadden, there is a theoretical possibility that he's so good during the preseason, working with the number twos, that he is somebody that a team will pick up the phone and try and make a move to go and get him. So like I said at the beginning of this video, it's not just a straight up, these guys are getting cut. It's more so who is on rocky footing. McFadden's not on rocky footing because of his performance. His health impacted how they were approaching things and how they wanted to rebuild this defense. Neither did they probably assume that Arvell Reese was even going to be available for them to select. Sonny Styles was brought up as an option, but that is a completely separate talking point. I think that McFadden, to get back to what I said a second ago, is a good enough of a player to truly thrive in the preseason. And with plenty of teams looking for a starting level will, maybe somebody endures an injury like the Giants did a year ago, somebody tries to go and trade for him. I don't imagine that Muasau is going to beat out McFadden because they're going to be in direct competition for remaining spots at linebacker on this team. It depends on how many inside linebackers they choose to carry, but I can't imagine that they're going to carry 5 if they include Reese, Edmunds, Muasau, McFadden, and Kelly. So either one of these guys, if Muasau looks good in the preseason, maybe they try to trade McFadden. If McFadden looks like he is established enough and they're going to be able to have him as tremendous depth and he could be one of their best special teamers, they cut Muasau. It doesn't cost them any money. And they decide if they're going to put Jack Kelly on the practice squad or not. Outside of that, though, the rest of this Giants roster, due to general lacks of depth at certain position groups, I don't imagine any more notable guys really getting cut because at defensive tackle, they need everything that they can get. Hence the fact that they went and brought in Leki Fotu and DJ Reader and also Zach Pickens. At safety, they need everything that they can get. I don't really see a world that they end up getting rid of Tyler Nubin or Javon Holland. So again, the likely movement here happens at corner or at linebacker. Comment below which player on the defensive side of the ball that you think the Giants are most likely to cut. Hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. We'll catch you later.